Vinny Politan, thank you for joining us. Another big hour coming up here on Closing Arguments. Another big case on your front row seat to justice, the case of Chad Daybell, the so-called Doomsday Prophet, back in court today. There he is. His wife, Lori Daybell, has already been convicted. Similar charges to Chad. It's now his turn inside the courtroom. Will this be any different? Well, it's different in one way. We're getting to see the witnesses this time, not just hear from the witnesses. But it's all about Chad Daybell and his group, his cult, his followers. There they are, snacking away. You see Lori's in the middle, Melanie Gibbs over there. Chad had people who followed him, who believed in him. The biggest being Lori, his co-defendant who's been convicted. But let's go right outside the courthouse in Boise, Idaho. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft joins us live tonight. Kelly, we heard from Lori Daybell's niece, Melanie, such an important witness in all this, part of that group, one of those followers of Chad Daybell. What did she have to say, and what did she say about these so-called castings that were taking place?
Well, good evening to you, Vinny. Yes, Melani Pawlowski, she made her way into the courtroom today with her two attorneys by her side, and she talked about the castings. She also talked about her relationship with Chad and Lori and how close she was to them. And at one point, she began calling Chad Daddy because she had become so close to him, and then she also would refer to Lori as Mom. So why don't we go ahead and listen to some of her testimony. We were all waiting to hear from her and hear what she had to say. Of course, her ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux, he had already been on the stand, but today we heard from Melanie. Let's listen about the castings.
Would you say at some point you developed a close relationship with Chad?
Yes.
At some point, did you eventually begin referring to him as Dad?
Yes.
At some point, did Lori and Chad begin sharing teachings with you or their purported beliefs?
Yes.
Do you recall them sharing some teachings regarding light and dark?
Yes.
Do you know where those ideas were originating from?
I believe they came from Chad.
Do you recall what they taught you or told you in relation to light and dark?
From what I remember, Chad was said to have a gift to spiritually discern, and he could see light and dark, or if a person had good intentions, but that he could see through and had that gift.
And Vinny, she also talked about today that sometimes that gift would be aided by the use of a pendant. So sometimes Chad would use a pendant, and that's where he would get some of the answers and some of the visions from God. But she said he didn't necessarily need the pendant all the time to have these visions.
Okay, now, aside from the victims in this case, those who were killed and those who died and maybe were killed, that's what the trial's about. Who else did they decide was dark?
We have heard for quite some time now about Charles Vallow being labeled as dark. This is Lori Vallow's fourth husband, who was then killed by her brother, Alex Cox. We also have learned for quite some time, or known for quite some time, that JJ and Ty Lee were also labeled as dark. But something new we were hearing about today, or at least for the first time during this trial, some of the detectives also labeled as dark. Let's listen to that testimony from Melanie.
At some point, did you have conversations with Chad and Lori about law enforcement?
Yes.
What did they tell you in relation to law enforcement?
They told me that law enforcement was corrupt and that they were after them and that they couldn't be trusted.
At some point, do you recall if specific law enforcement officers were identified as dark by Chad and Lori?
Yes.
Who were those officers?
Detective Aramasio and I want to say Detective Hope. Is that? I'm not sure if that's right. There was somebody who was related to Tammy's family, I think.
Yeah, and you heard Melani on the stand talking about that one of the detectives was related to Tammy Daybell's family. This is Chad Daybell's first wife. So hearing her talk about that and the labeling of the people that were light and dark, again, hearing about the detectives, that was kind of a first here. So that was a big development here today, Vinny.
Okay, let's talk about what happens when you are determined to be dark. Melani talked about that, didn't she?
She definitely talked about that, and she said that some people just were so dark that there was no way to get that darkness out of them except for them then to die. So let's listen to that testimony.
There was some type of darkness that you couldn't cast out. And so if this, that the Lord in his due time would have to take, that person would pass away because this darkness was too much or something like that.
So if someone were to be possessed and with a strong enough entity, essentially the body would have to die.
Judge, that's leading. Calls for speculation.
That's a sustained on leading.
If someone became too dark, would the body have to die?
Judge, leading.
Overruled.
I believe so. That I think that was their idea, that they would pass away because they couldn't have this darkness inside them.
So Melani, you could hear her on the stand just kind of talking about how she became involved with Lori and Chad and the beliefs, and really was just going along and participating in these castings and what Chad and Lori, who she looked at as parental figures, were telling her to do.
One other interesting thing I'm sure everyone's talking about as they watch this testimony are these glasses that she's wearing, these enormous glasses. I've never seen her wear them before, but clearly, I don't know, it stands out to me. It almost hides her face a little bit. I know our connection's a little bit blurred. Was she wearing them inside, outside as well?
Yeah, Vinny, she definitely had a different look than we've seen before. You know, you usually see this blonde lady, and so today on the stand had a very different appearance, and she probably just wanted to kind of hide her appearance. I'm sure she's gotten a lot of attention from this case, and so made some adjustments to her appearance.
I mean, almost looks like goggles that you'd wear when you know, go into the ocean and you want to see the bottom of the ocean, but I know this is tough on everyone, right?
They were quite big.
Yeah, they're very large,
yes,
but probably stylish. I don't know. All right, her husband, her new husband, also testified today.
He did. This is Ian. And so he was on the stand talking about how he married Melani within a short time. They had met on an LDS dating site, married a few days later, so not married very long. And then how at first he knew about Chad and Lori and their beliefs, but then he started to become skeptical, in particular when Chad gave him a blessing. This is when Melani and him ended up getting married. Let's listen to that testimony.
In addition to, you know, giving me a blessing, you know, or saying, you know, they approve of me marrying Melani, they gave me a religious blessing.
Was anything strange about the religious blessing to you?
It was unorthodox based on the LDS beliefs that I held at the time. He talked about shielding me with light, removing dark weapons from me.
Initially, were you somewhat open to some of the ideas she was sharing?
Yes,
How long did you remain open to those ideas?
until the night we got married.
What changed that night?
The weight of what she was sharing, the implications of what she was sharing, it was just hearing that she feared that Tylee and JJ may have been in danger at that time, and the behavior that she was seeing from Chad and Lori at that time.
As part of this blessing, Vinny, he said that Chad told him that Melani and along with him, they were going to cleanse the earth through earthquakes. They were going to be working in conjunction with Mother Earth. He talked about how Melani really wanted blessings from Chad and Lori because she was believing what was taking place, what they were saying, the teachings, and she really wanted blessings from them. But of course, as you just heard him testify, when that wedding day came and he gave them that blessing, Chad in particular, that he just started to really doubt a lot of the things that they were saying.
I'll tell you what, her new husband may have saved her. May have saved her from all this, you know, kind of got her away, because that's the moment where everything is becoming clear, more and more clear about how extreme Lori's beliefs had become. Wow. Okay, Kelly.
Yeah, and Vinny, he was saying that he was getting law enforcement involved because he was worried about his children and his ex-wife, just because based on some of the things that Melani was saying. So he wanted to get law enforcement involved, and that's why he began recording a lot of the conversations.
Absolutely. We're going to take a listen to some of those tomorrow. Kelly Craft, Court TV legal correspondent, thank you so much. Let's bring in our special guest. Joining us tonight, host of the Mormon Stories podcast, John DeLynn, is back with us. John, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. I want to get your reaction first to the blessings from Chad for the wedding of Melani and her new husband, Ian.
Yeah, one of the central tenets of Mormonism is this idea of priesthood power. And when a man is ordained with priesthood power, he gets special gifts or powers. And one is to give blessings, to give priesthood blessings. So they're very common for Mormon men to give priesthood blessings to their children, to their spouses, to other people who need them. And then one of the special powers given as a specific priesthood power is the power to cast out evil spirits. That comes from Jesus himself in the New Testament. But Joseph Smith, one of the founders of Mormonism, one of his first miracles was to cast out the devil from one of his followers. So this is very core Mormon doctrine and very core Mormon teachings.
And what we saw from Melani Pawlowski's new husband, Ian, is that a lot of red flags were going up for him. Like he's LDS, and the more he got to know about what Lori and Chad were doing and everything, I mean, it seems pretty quickly became very, very skeptical about their extremism and what was happening, you know, relative to J.J. Tiley and everything else.
Yeah, as I understand it, didn't Chad give him a blessing over Zoom or Skype or something like that? Like, normally that's the type of blessing you would do in person. So like with so many things with Chad and Lori, their behaviors and their beliefs are based in Mormonism, but they like take it to 11
Yeah.
or 20. Yeah.
I want to play some testimony from Melani Pawlowski here, talking about light and dark, and get, if you can expand on it a little bit for us and give us a better understanding. Let's watch.
Are you saying that the mentioning of light and dark is something that's within the LDS faith in terms of the scriptures?
It does talk about light and dark in the scriptures.
Okay. So that was not a unusual or a new subject to you as part of being of the LDS faith. Is that right?
I didn't have a great grasp on it, but
Okay.
from what I understood it, the basis came from the scriptures.
Okay, John, if you can go through the lightness and darkness, because it keeps coming back to that. And when these people are so-called deemed dark by Chad or Lori or whomever, they end up dead. So it's a very significant part of all this. What are your thoughts about it and its connection or lack of connection to LDS?
Yeah, so when you're Mormon, you're taught that you have the power of the Holy Ghost, and that gift of the Holy Ghost gives you what's called discernment. And with the power of discernment, you can look at someone's, countenance or their spirit, and if they, look good to you, if they look righteous, if they look faithful, you would say that they have a light countenance. And if they, had left the church or were criticizing the church or engaged in some type of sinful behavior you deem sinful, you would very often say they have a dark countenance. And so that light and darkness is absolutely part of the Mormon paradigm. The Book of Mormon goes so far as to say that God cursed white Native Native Americans with dark skin as a curse. And so it goes beyond just spiritual light and darkness to actually skin color. But again, Chad and Lori take it a step further, because obviously it's not mainstream Mormonism to kill someone that you decide has a dark countenance. Although, you know, the Book of Mormon does tell a really important story about an early Book of Mormon prophet being told by the Holy Ghost that they needed to kill somebody else, chop their head off because God told them to. So if you put enough core Mormon teachings together, you can see how Chad and Lori would get to the beliefs and the behaviors that they had.
And when we talk about Melani Pawlowski, this is Lori's niece, and her mom passed away when she was young, very young, and Lori, I don't know, at some point sort of like kind of stepped into that role, sort of, but it seems like it was more at the time that she was with Chad, and we heard testimony that she referred to Chad as Dad. Interested in your thoughts about that, because he's he's Lori's boyfriend, he's the prophet, becomes Lori's husband. What are your thoughts about that, the nature of that relationship, and looking at Chad as Dad, or referring to him as Dad?
Yeah, I think that one of the trademarks of predators is to prey on the vulnerable. So if Chad and or Lori, decided that Melani was a vulnerable person, they would have seen her as someone that could be controlled, as someone that could be used, much like, I believe, Lori's brother. And so, people that want to commit fraud, that are cult leaders, they're always looking for followers to do their bidding. And I am very certain that they would have loved to have Melani and Ian become devout followers, just like Lori's brother, Alex.
So John DeLynn, not only host of the Mormon Stories podcast, a PhD in psychology, so always interested in your thoughts and insight. Thank you so much, John. We'll speak again. I know we will, because this trial is continuing. When we come back, how devastating is this testimony for Chad Daybell, the so-called prophet? Darnell, Jennifer Brandt, Al with us. What are they thinking? Al's pointing his finger all over the place tonight. Think Tank up next.
This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
It's a controversial case that's divided a community.
Karen Reed is accused of murdering her police officer boyfriend.
Prosecutors say she ran him over on purpose and left him to die in the cold.
But Reed claims that she's being framed.
It smells suspicious.
After years of legal fireworks, will the truth finally be revealed?
The end game is to figure out who killed John O'Keefe and hold these people responsible.
The killer or cover-up murder trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
Would you say at some point you developed a close relationship with Chad?
Yes.
At some point, did you eventually begin referring to him as Dad?
Yes.
Did Lori and Chad begin sharing teachings with you or their purported beliefs?
Yes.
Do you recall which one of them, or if it was both of them that shared those things with you?
Both. From what I remember, Chad was said to have a gift to spiritually discern, and he could see light and dark, or if a person had good intentions, but that he could see through and had that gift. That he had a pendulum kind of thing where he could get an answer to something he wanted to know.
At some point, did Chad and Lori teach you about castings?
Yes. That you could do, you could cast out at any time for anybody if you feel like you're being inflicted with some type of dark spirit or a bad feeling, that anybody at any time could raise their right hand to the square and cast out.
Did you participate in any castings?
Yes. I remember one where Lori invited us over to do a casting on Charles.
Did Chad and Lori ever share with you what they believed their mission in this world to be?
I believe it was to help with the second coming of Jesus Christ.
At some point, did you have conversations with Chad and Lori about law enforcement?
They told me that law enforcement was corrupt and that they were after them and that they couldn't be trusted. They told me, don't speak with law enforcement.
Did Chad tell you anything in relation to where you should be living?
I remember that he said that Madison County wasn't safe.
At any point, did Melanie share some of the beliefs she'd been taught?
Yes.
Initially, were you somewhat open to some of the ideas she was sharing?
Yes.
How long did you remain open to those ideas?
Until the night we got married. The weight of what she was sharing, the implications of what she was sharing, it was just hearing that she feared that Tylee and JJ may have been in danger at that time.
Did law enforcement end up asking for your assistance?
Yes.
As part of that, did they ask you to record conversations?
Yes.
It's Dave that's causing the problem. Like, it's bad for her in every way because we can't trust her anymore. She does not, for one. For two, it ruins her place with us. But for three, you call the police and you tell them that you're a liar, and then you try to tell them something that's the truth. They're going to be like, you just said you were a liar.
Right.
So I don't know if I trust that at all.
Right.
So you kind of shoot yourself in the foot. You call them, tell them that you lied.
There's some still you need to get out of that complex. Not rush out of it. They're not going to leave you alone. I could sense the network pretty deep, and they're going to see you as the target since you're the only one that they really can find at the moment. For your own sake, for your own sanity, too bad. We know you were led there, and it worked for 2 months for us as we planned and got together, and we found Ian, and now a different phase of your life has begun. Madison County, you know, probably.
Well, it's
I'm not saying you got to decide tonight. The sex complex went from a blessed place to a cursed place due to the wickedness of the police. I think they're not going to leave you alone.
So how do you get Arimatheo to stop? Because he's not going to stop. He's so like raged with this whole thing. He was just pacing, like yelling at me, like he's like, I'm not going to stop for anything. But isn't Rexford like the place of safety when all things happen?
Yeah, but there's been lots of prophecies about major turmoil there. The plague's going to sweep through Rexford.
Every time I listen to his voice, I'm like, people are following him? All right, let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Al Wunsch III. Also with us, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crossland. Looks like he is in parts unknown tonight. And also with us, family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. Great to see everyone tonight. Al, this guy has followers. Melanie was following him. She marries a guy, thank goodness, Ian, who sees through it, cooperating with police and recording this guy. But now we get to hear his voice, like in real life. Can you believe that he was the leader? That he's the one folks are like, this is the guy. This is the guy. This is the one who's going to help us when the second coming happens.
Well, then every time you take a look at any of these cults, okay, I always sit and ask the same question. Like, how could anyone have gone with the Reverend Jim Jones? How could anyone have left the United States and gone to South America and set up a Jonestown, okay, away from anything to do with civilization? How can they do it? Well, people are stupid, and they follow this kind of stuff. And what happens is that these guys, Jim Jones, and then what I'm seeing here with the Daybell, that they take a real good religion and then they pervert it. I mean, the whole thing with regards to the Latter-day Saints is that the lightness and the darkness is that, you know, lightness is important. Okay, it can you know, shine through, and the darkness can only overcome you if you let it in. Okay, but it never says anything about kill them if they're too dark. It doesn't say that. So what does he do? He takes that and perverts it in such a way that, oh, I see darkness, and the only way we can save these people is to get rid of them, because this is what Jesus wants us to do, or God wants us to do, in order to get the second coming. And it's a perversion that people follow. I don't know why. I don't find his voice to be particularly soothing. If anything, I find it somewhat annoying. Okay, and her voice is even, Lori's voice is even worse than his. But he's able to coax these people to take a decent religion, a real religion, and pervert it in such a way that he takes gullible people and gets them to follow. It's just frightening.
Darnell, he's also, originally, Rexburg was the place. This is where the 144,000 were going to gather, in Rexburg. But all of a sudden, the police who are investigating him and Lori have brought this plague across Rexburg.
Well, a couple of things. One, I find it very alarming that Al doesn't have followers, and I think he's a bit envious. Secondly, Jonestown was in Guyana, which is not too far from where I am sitting right now. And in terms of the darkness, Billie Holiday had a song, Strange Fruit, that talked about black people hanging from trees. So I guess stupidity just goes on and goes rampant. Now this guy's taken it to a whole other level, well, a level that has been taken to already, and trying to do it in his own way. And Al objects to that, and I object as well. But in terms of just what we've been hearing, I agree 100%. I don't know how people could follow certain people. I mean, do they just wake up looking for someone to follow and the first, go to the, the first bidder? Because it's ridiculous.
Jennifer Brandt, you have 10 seconds. No, you have about 40 seconds. Go ahead.
I agree with Alan Darnell. I mean, but I also see there are people that follow cults, and we hear about it over and over again. So it's not surprising that something like this happened. People are looking for someone to lead them a lot of times, and someone to give them answers. And here we are, Chad Daybell, giving some answers. Maybe not answers that we believe in, but certainly for those that he was able to convince. They felt that he was all-knowing, that he had the power, that he was able to see the light and darkness. Yes, he carried it way too far, and so do many cult leaders. But I don't think it's surprising that he found people to follow him.